Channel, or if you're not, please tell me where you're from. And tonight I have a contest. A couple of things that I'm going to tell you a little story about what's happened to me since last week, which leads me to sharing the part about where I've been cheating. So yes, cheating is not something that I do. I get a lot of questions about it, actually. There's many folks who say, is this a big deal? I've been on keto for so long. Other comments that I get are, why do you fast? You're healthy. What would you do this for? And so I think there's a lot of teaching opportunities that have happened in the past week. So the contest, though, and I have to keep my glasses on because I really do have to watch for this, is I am going to post a picture. Let's see if I can do this, of a skyline, and yes, it's also on the thumbnail. So if you're watching from home, but you're also watching, I mean, you're watching live is what I meant to say. I am in a location that I took a picture of right before I went live. And I want to see in the live comments who can guess where I'm at. And whoever guesses where I'm at, I will send you a signed copy of my book, any way you can. So I'll give you just a couple more minutes to look at that image, and then I will go back to my face. But I am just watching some of the comments come in to say it's really amazing how many people throughout the world have just been very curious about what the ketogenic diet looks like and how to make mistakes on it, how to get over those mistakes, and what that turns into in real life. So I'm keeping an eye to see who can guess where that location is, because the first person that guesses, I will write down your name, and afterwards I will private message you and get your information to send you a free copy of my book, any way you can. So here's the story. Oh, somebody already guessed it right there. It looks like Malik Experiments. You totally guessed it. Okay, so if you're scrolling in the comments, you can go and get the sneak peek about where I'm at, because wow, that was impressive. I didn't think skylines were going to be that easy. I thought maybe by the end somebody will guess it. So here's the story. I was in Houston last week I was at the police academy doing some education. And if you've been following my channel, if you have tuned into my life, my energy, and my passion for teaching about the ketogenic diet started with brain repair. I'm an internal medicine physician, and I take care of broken brains, from Parkinson's to depression to bipolar to menopause to brain fog. The collection of brains that aren't working right has been a big part of my 20 plus years of being an internal medicine physician. As I do that, the response of how keto fits into brain repair has led to some people wanting education. And the police academy in Texas wanted some education, and I said yes. So my husband and I flew down to Houston, and while we were there, we were going to try something. So I keep teasing my husband that I want to live on a boat. The next chapter of our life, when kids are done with high school, that I want to live on a boat. And this is not that strange. I don't know, maybe it's strange, but it wasn't that strange until you learn that every time my husband's taken me on a boat, I get seasick. Now he takes me deep sea fishing, which is really rough. And so I said, nope. I will tell you, I'm not going to get seasick. We're going to try this while we're in Houston, that you can go on Airbnb and stay on a boat for a night or two. So we get to Houston, and I'm teaching at the police academy. It was a great lecture. The officers were super attentive, had really good questions. It might have been one of the best ones I've done. It really, really was great. And I get done with my section of it, and they have to cancel the location because it was a downpour in Houston, to the point where I don't know if you would call that a monsoon, but if that kind of rain happened in South Dakota, we would totally call it a monsoon. But like 4 inches, like the Uber drivers couldn't come get me. Anyway, so during that time, my husband said, all right, we're going to go somewhere else for this boat experience. Now, we've been together 25 years. We've been married 20 years. And it is, without saying that, I think he surprised me like never. I just, yeah, I love you, husband, but I can always figure out what you're up to. So I should have had a clue when he told me to bring my passport. And the passport isn't something you need in Houston. And so I'm thinking, is it for Airbnb? No. So he has me meet him at the airport. And this was an unplanned trip. He said because of the rains in Houston, he got a very inexpensive trip. And we headed to Central America and got a really good deal on staying on a boat for 5 days. So, I mean, I'm super thankful because I was on the boat for 5 days. It was a sailing boat, and it was amazing, actually. I didn't get seasick. I did not get seasick. But if you look at that skyline, you'll see where we ended up. And the reason I'm telling you this is because he planned some things really well, but like I think he bought me a swimsuit right before we left, and I showed up to the sailboat in my outfit that I had been in where I was teaching the police academy, so like all dressed up to do a workshop. So the folks ask if there's any food allergies, and now we're on this boat for 5 days, and of course we're not going to be keto. So this is where this topic from tonight comes from, which is what happens when you cheat. So there's several things that I think are worth talking about. Like I think I've had more carbohydrates in the last 5 days than I've had in a year and a half. And the couple that was with us, English is their second language, but they understood just enough that we didn't have any sweets. Like the boat had no sweets on it, but it was, a tropical place where whatever groceries you have on the boat, and we caught fish and ate fish, so that was keto, right? And of course, I have a copy of my book, and from the beginning to the end of these 5 days, I can't believe what happened to me. First of all, the couple that was in charge of the boat was amazing. They'd never heard of keto. They're like, I don't think this word exists in Spanish. And I said, it does. In fact, the keto term isn't something most Americans know about. So I gave her the book, and then I, just said, okay, we're not going to go, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm in this amazing place, and I'm not going to get seasick. And for 5 days, I just didn't have I didn't care. I just said, all right, let's just go off of keto for 5 days. And I talk about this diet in many ways. Not only I can hear in my voice that I'm slurring my speech a little bit. And it's not because the world around me still is moving from being on that boat for 5 days. I didn't get seasick, but I might be land sick. Like everything still is moving a little bit. But I can feel how my speech is slower. And I put on 7 pounds in 5 days. And so I talk about how this, the ketogenic diet, one of the things I do a lot of teaching on is how much faster your brain repairs from an injury when it's not swollen. And on the ketogenic diet, you will see lots of improvements in the body's inflammation, but the inflammation it's kind of hard to measure. It's hard to see it. I can see it in people's labs. I can tell when they've had a brain injury if their brain is still swollen by some of the tests that I do. And if I know the patient well enough, I can hear it in their voice that it's a slower cadence of speech. And I can hear it in my voice. I can tell you that this is not normal. If you go back and listen to some of my other YouTube videos, I can hear the slowness in my speech, and I'm exaggerating a little bit there just for effect. But I'm going to show you a couple other things that so let me just do one more thing. So in the process of teaching these two about a ketogenic diet, because I can't really help it. I'm like, I show them my book. They read a little bit about it. They think there must be something lost in translation because it says to eat so much fat. And they're like, no, that's not good for you. And so I get my glucometer out the first morning that we're there, first morning we wake up, and I check the lady's glucose, and it was 88, and I check her husband, and he is lean. He has, his body mass index says probably 22, and he's around 50 years old, but he goes, yeah, he's a sugar addict, and that there are memory problems that have happened in his family, brain injuries that happen as his family members age, and his morning fasting glucose in this lean little body was 115 the first day I checked it, and 118 the next day I checked it. And I'm like, that's not good. The morning fasting sugar is really where we get to see how well did your body clean up the night before. And boy, it was shocking to them how quickly the sugar, the fast, I could check sugars. I checked ketones, and he wasn't producing any ketones because he says, I can't go without sugar. I would die. And as I'm eating like a cornbread and there's fruit everywhere, and so I'm like, yeah, you can't have fruit on this diet. You can't have rice. And I said, don't change the way you're cooking. It will be an interesting experiment. So there is a video I recorded, which is kind of weird, but I think it will. I think it will work well, and I'm going to try and talk over it as it plays. Let's just take that sound down. That's a weird picture of my leg. Those are the beads that were there. But I talk about looking at the inflammation. And if you can just notice that my thumb, I'm pushing really hard on my thumb, and then I took a close-up that the tip of my thumb right there, you can see it's white. So there is no circulation in the tip of my thumb. And this is a video that lasts 30 seconds because I'm pushing on a place in the body that should have just skin and fascia and then bone. Even when I was the heaviest I've ever been, there's no fat cells that happen in this part of my body. But look what happened in as little as 5 days of cheating on keto. And I'll tell you, I had to take my rings off because my fingers were swollen. I knew this was happening as it was happening, but it was also a place where I couldn't really, change what was, I couldn't say, okay, I'm gonna not be keto. I'm on a boat, and it's not like you can go to the grocery store. You're in the middle of nowhere. And I could feel it. And every day I noticed my speech was slower and slower and slower. And I think the teaching moment that I'm going to connect the dots with here in just a minute has so much to do with when the inflammation inside your brain the inflammation, you could see it in my leg there. But when it connects in your brain, you can watch not just the mood that is paramount for me when it comes to being on keto and not being on keto. I didn't open my computer one time in 5 days, and I think my husband planned that. Stop, just slow down, detox from the world, and tell me if you think living on a boat is even remarkably an option if you're going to get seasick. So I didn't get seasick, but I swear my thinking just got thicker and slower every day that I went, having probably 100 carbs, at least 100 carbohydrates. I don't know how much cornbread has in it because it's been so long since I've had cornbread, but I was shocked. And then I checked my sugar this morning, and I put that out a couple hours before this event. When I got back here, my sugar was in the high 90s. My ketones were 0.9. My Dr Boz ratio was over 100. And it's been a while since it's been that high. But what was profound was when I stepped on the scale, 7 pounds, and it is totally inflammation. When people say, why do you do the ketogenic diet long term? Why do you fast? And I think of it as every time that every week, every month that I'm in a ketogenic state, it kind of wrings out that inflammation a little better for my patients. Especially if they can get their Dr. Boz ratio low enough, you can see that anti-inflammatory effect really impact their skin, their hair, their life. And I have a few slides that I'm going to just connect the dots with before we quit. But first, I'm going to give you an update from Lachlan. And I was going to push a video right here, but something in the recording was just awful. So I'm just going to let you look at her while I talk about her, because that was probably much easier for you guys. So Lachlan is our type 1 diabetic. She started the ketogenic diet after like 2 years of me coaxing, saying, please do this with me, please do this with me. And, in fairness, it's hard to start. When you're a type 1 diabetic, it's not just kind of this dabble that you're going to do. It's a real deep dive into the chemistry and lifestyle change that happens when you change diet. For the first 8 weeks, I did not let her fast, and we did some major improvements in her chemistry by using exogenous ketones just to get her fire burning. That really has a lot to do with the lesson I'm going to go through in a minute. And then she did her first fast like 5 weeks ago. And her big announcement this week is she is down 21 pounds. And that is not water weight. That is not water weight. Like in the first 8 weeks, I don't know that she lost a single pound. Maybe just a couple of pounds, but it kind of fluctuated. And it had everything to do with, I wouldn't let her fast. I didn't tell her to stop eating. I just said, just add exogenous ketones. And we're going to keep counting carbs, getting less carbs, adjust your insulin. And starting 5 weeks ago, I said, okay, you can do your first fast. And she was super scared, and she didn't give herself any insulin. That's not how you're supposed to do it, but that's what happened. And over the last 5 weeks, she's done a fast every week. And she was saying that it is Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all those moms and my kids that might be watching it from home. And she said, that part where you're pregnant and you're about to deliver and you get this craze of like you want to clean? She's like, I swear when I fast, that happens to me. My energy shoots up, my brain gets clearer, and I can't believe how well I can focus. She's had a struggle. I'm the one who started her on insulin. She's a type 1 diabetic. It was over 8 years ago that we did this. She put on nearly 100 pounds thanks to my medicines and just following the diabetic guidelines. And, bless her heart, she did try about every possible way to control her diabetes, but it wasn't until we reduced the number of carbohydrates to less than 20 and then really worked with her chemistry to say, we need your mitochondria ready for this. Do not fast until I tell you to. And she's just had a remarkable improvement. I don't know if you can see it in her face. That's why I took the picture to say, look at her. She looks amazing. She looks amazing. And she said, I asked her, how much of the exogenous ketones are you still taking? And she says, she goes, I don't know if it's because I took them for so long before you let me fast that I really like the taste, and I associate it with feeling good and concentrating. She has a third job where she now she bartends at night, and she goes, so I can get pretty tired. And as a type 1 diabetic, I would have spent so much energy trying to eat to match that energy level that now she says, I just do exogenous ketones when I have a late shift because I like the energy, but I don't need them nearly as much as what she did at the beginning, which is my point. That's why exogenous ketones are super important for the health of your mitochondria when you're first starting out. All right, so that brings me to this section. Oops, we're going to take that little video away. And we are going to do a recap. So in part, this recap is for folks who are at the beginning and they're wondering how, why would I want to be keto for the rest of my life? And part of this has to do with mitochondria, which can be a little advanced, but I like how this primary fuel stuff plays out. So you have three fuels. When I was teaching the two people that were on the boat, this lesson, it's amazing what comes to you when you're teaching in a second language. I'm like, all right, you have three fuels in your options for life. You have carbs, you have fat, and I don't like to say you have protein. Protein breaks down to amino acids. Amino acids are not really a fuel, but just, don't think about that. So when you look at the energy that comes from different fuel sources, I like to refer to this as the energy you would get from a campfire. So if you look at your carbohydrates, it's kind of like burning leaves or pine needles, and you put them in the fire and up goes the energy, and it's really kind of exciting, and then it crashes down a couple hours later. And if you've ever had a big Thanksgiving dinner with lots of carbs and you say, oh, it's that, Jack's giving me a message, which means something must be going wrong. Can only see the top left half. Oh, shoot. Okay, let me try something here. I have a backup plan this week in case that didn't work that way. All right, so let's try it this way. So there's the line that's the carbs go up, the energy goes up, and then it shoots back down. When you look at the protein is the brown line, if you would. And again, that energy source is kind of compared to a campfire that has sticks. So some twigs, it'll burn for a while, but it is not sustainable. In fact, I had I have a lecture I'm preparing that I'll do one of these Sunday nights about what happens if you eat only protein. What does your body do when you eat only protein? And it's not a good thing. But the final one there is what happens when you burn fat. And if you look at burning fat, I correlate that to burning a log in the fire. Now, the danger of burning a log is if that's where you start, you can't find much heat or energy or momentum at first. But if you once that log starts burning, you really can find the energy source as much higher. Let's make sure. Okay, the energy source as much higher the longer you burn that log. So this is where I was really working hard for Lachlan, was to say, okay, she's been carb addicted. I mean, I was the one giving her the insulin. I knew how much she was. And this is a very common story, like the man that I saw that was on the boat, whose blood sugars are high. And he tried to go without sugar for one night, and he got up in the night and just said, no, I had to. I was going to die without carbohydrates. And the problem he's having is to start the fuel burning in mitochondria with fat is kind of like starting a log on fire. So, oh, is that what I wanted? No, that's not what I want. So hold on. Wrong button. Let's see here. Okay, so how do you start your mitochondria on fire? That's what I'm going to cover here. If you look at the mitochondria, most of your cells have this little mitochondria. I think this is a beautiful mitochondria. I like that one. It is the energy source inside. It's the motor inside each cell. Now there's a few cells that don't have mitochondria, but for the most part, every cell has this little motor, and it says, how are you going to fuel this cell? And so if you imagine fuel coming in one side and coming out the other, that's where I'm going to focus on fueling your mitochondria from carbohydrates and from fat. And what does that look like? Now, I had a really good presentation that isn't going to show up because I'm going to give you the end slide instead of the play it forward. So you look at the energy here, and again, that red up and down is what happens when you burn carbohydrates. The energy goes in. It's very hot. It's very inflamed. It's exciting. When I first got on the boat and I started eating all these carbs that I haven't eaten forever, I'm like, honey, I feel great. And then the next morning, my brain was like, it's like I took Dramamine, but I didn't. So then if you look at fat, we've already covered that one. That's that low one. But what I think is interesting is what happens when you add BHB, which is what exogenous ketones are. So you put that exogenous ketones into your system, which is what we did to Lachlan, and although her mitochondria did not know what to do with it the first day, we said, nope, just keep sipping on that all day long. We want to add some ketones to your blood, and your system will learn how to use these ketones in a much more compelling version of it starts out the first day, or the first 2 days, I would say, maybe she peed every one of those out. And then by the third or fourth day, her mitochondria were waking up. And I know because of the brain studies, and we're going to go through a little bit of a brain study here, but the other part is because she said, I just felt like I wasn't so moody. My mood wasn't so irritable. The other way that you can use a supplement to jumpstart your mitochondria is MCT. So that dotted line is what MCT would look like. And MCT has, those ketones last a little longer, and your liver is actually making them. So your body's really getting a little better at processing its own ketones, kind of making the ketones. So both skills get better with those supplements. And then when you watch to see what happens when we took away those supplements from Lachlan, it was amazing. She said, I can't believe that I could go that long without eating. I've been a type 1 diabetic. I eat every 2 hours. This is exactly what I do. And she said in her first fast, she lost 8 pounds. And you think, is that even like possible to lose that much weight calorically? So it had to be that she still had some inflammation in that system, but what's been amazing for her is she hasn't gained any of it back. Every pound she's lost during her fasting has not come back. Now, that isn't normal. That isn't usually what happens. So just don't expect that. What I think is powerful by looking at this is I have 3 sons, and we've taught them how to make a campfire, and we use something called Girl Scout juice. Okay, I'm watching the comments now, so if you know what Girl Scout juice is, somebody type that in. So Girl Scout juice is a term that my boys would use, kind of like in a derogative way because they're boys and they don't need Girl Scout juice, but they always use Girl Scout juice to start their fire. So I'm just seeing if anybody put it in. So anyway, I don't see it yet, but I'll keep watching. So looking at Girl Scout juice, it's lighter fluid. So you put lighter fluid on the log, and then you light it up, and you're like, sometimes the log starts on fire, sometimes it's not enough Girl Scout juice, and you need to do it again. And so a couple of times through the Girl Scout juice rigmarole, and you don't really need kindling, you got the log to burn from the Girl Scout juice. And I think that's just a great analogy as I was trying to teach these people in a different language, what is it about exogenous ketones that would be helpful for him? I don't think that's what they're going to do. The access to it there was very unlikely. But yeah, Girl Scout juice is gas, is lighter fuel fluid. Thank you. I see the ones that did it. It's amazing how quickly the system will figure out how to burn these. And I use that analogy while teaching them that the beta-hydroxybutyrate, or I call it ketones-in-a-can, the exogenous ketones. Your body doesn't have to do anything. I mean, they're quickly just absorbed, not even digested. They're absorbed, and they're in your system within about 5 minutes. So you have to dose it several times throughout the day. But when people are just beginning, like this poor man who couldn't go 6 hours without eating, and he's lean. It's not like he has a lot of weight to lose. But I was telling him, if you don't have access to healthcare, one of the most powerful things you can do for your brain as you age is to not have it inflamed. And you can't help but have an inflamed brain when you have a morning glucose of 117. So it was a very powerful moment to say, why do I do the ketogenic diet? Well, first of all, I couldn't believe how much better my body felt. And as the longer I kept those carbs going in, the more I kind of got down. I didn't get sick, but I got just couldn't believe how slow my brain worked. And again, I can still hear it in my in my voice. So I've done this study in a couple other places, but I think it's a really powerful teaching tool. This is 10 healthy people, ages 20 to 50. So again, just like those folks that were on the boat, they were not keto adapted, but they were put on a really high fat ketogenic diet. Their ratio was 4.5 to 1. So that's 4.5 grams of fat for 1 gram of carbohydrates and protein combined. So the 1 is carbs plus protein, not just carbs. So 4.5 grams of fat. It's a really high. It's a very advanced ketogenic diet, like what I would use for a cancer patient. So now this is going to look a little funny because I'm not playing it. It should say day 1 on the high fat diet. Oh, it's not going to work. I'll just skip down to this one. I'll show you it all lined up. So day 1 on the high fat diet, this top scan, that really intense reds, shows they had a very, that's the part of their brain that was using almost 98% glucose. Where it was yellow is they're using a little less glucose. And by day 4 on this diet, their brain, there was hardly any red. So the intensity for using glucose was much less by day 4 of this diet. The most shocking part is their day 1 for ketones, they had none. There was 0 ketones when they started. But by day 4, they had intense areas that their brains were preferring ketones over glucose as long as the ketones were available. So when people say, why do you do this? Why do you do ketones long term? And for starters, I want a brain that's not inflamed as I age. I have taken care of enough broken brains that it's remarkable how, I was telling this man who's in his 50s, yes, you're lean, but the saddest day for me is when a patient comes in and they say, hey doc, there's something wrong with my brain. Hey doc, how do you fix this? And it's so heart wrenching to say, you should have come in 10 years ago. That sugar that has been high for 10 years has been a swollen brain, an inflamed brain. And now you're asking me to fix an old brain. Now, it's not impossible, but it takes a lot of work. And when I look at Grandma Rose, who started this diet at 71, that's what my book is about, Any Way You Can. That story was, I described her, this didn't make the book because people said it sounded too harsh, but I described her as a zombie at this stage. She's this wonderful, vibrant, she's the unelected town mayor. She just is involved in her community. Mary Poppins is what I call her in the book because she was that energetic and committed and driven to be part of life. And the version of her that was present at 71 was a swollen brain that wasn't healthy. And as I look at somebody like John, who was the captain of this boat, and say, he doesn't notice a thing. He is lean. No one would even guess that there's that problem. But the morning fasting sugars in his case caused him to definitely have, there's an underlying pathology that happens day after day after day of a swollen brain. So you get back to 5 days on a boat with more carbohydrates in 5 days than I've probably had in 10 months. And my brain is swollen and I was a little crabby and I have swelling in my legs. And you say, what would I do? Well, I'm advanced. I have mitochondria that are used to burning ketones. If I had exogenous ketones with me, I would totally take them though. It would just make it so much easier. I know I would do that. But I will fast. My husband and we're in, and if you haven't figured it out, I will go back and remember the gal's name who got this right. I'm in Panama City. So that's where the emergency get out of Houston when the downpour was happening. What's the cheapest place we could find? And we ended up in Panama City, which I kind of had to look up where exactly is that in Central America. And 5 days in a unique environment that we've never experienced before. It was an incredible experience, but I'll tell you, I can't wait to fast because I feel heavy. My brain feels slow. You know, 5 days without opening my computer was really good for my marriage. And there was part of my brain that said thank you, but I have plenty to do tomorrow. And as I look at how to recover from my own cheating, you know, just embrace this environment, embrace this experience, and then watch to see how well the process is to get back online. I get my ketones back up to a healthy level. It will be very interesting. We are going to go out to eat tonight, so I won't fast tonight, even though usually I start fasting on Sunday. I'll fast when starting in the morning. So follow me on Instagram at Annette Bosworth, or Annette Bosworth on Instagram. And you'll see what my numbers do. And I bet it'll take me 48 hours to get my Dr. Boz ratio less than 40 this week. I can just feel the slowness. So whoever did guess that skyline is Panama City, I will send you a signed copy of my book, Any Way You Can. And I do have an announcement about the book that I didn't write a chapter in my book, my upcoming book, my new book this week. But that's okay. I'll get that done. But I have an interesting story about Any Way You Can that has happened, and I will share that next Sunday. So I'm just going to take a quick look through several of the comments. I do get good ideas when I read these, just so you know. So yeah, Emma, thank you for saying you've lost a lot of weight in your face and has Lackland. That's the part that I told her in the video. I wish you could have heard her, but the sound was awful, but at least to look at her face. I mean, go back and look at the first video. Her face was swollen, her eyes were swollen, her speech was slower, and you couldn't hear the speech today, but it's like, as her doctor, I'm so proud of how she's doing, and the comments that you guys do for her on Instagram, they are so helpful for her. The encouragement is something that I really think without your encouragement, that would have just taken us longer to get this far down the road. I will go back and read all these comments. Thank you very much. And again, I am signing off as Dr. Boz, helping your health one ketone at a time. See you next Sunday.